Hello and welcome. This is the title of the session, which is a bit long for my liking, but this is the result of a lot of thought in various stages. And hopefully by the end it will make sense. I mean, you're here, so presumably you read the description. So yeah. A bit about myself. My name is Yannis Lagogiannis. I'm the Apple Systems Specialist at LSE. We're obviously based in London, and I started at the London School of Economics about 2 years ago. My post was the first Apple-specific post, and I was brought in specifically to set up the what we started calling the Apple Managed Environment, and we kind of named it something else over time, which you're going to see in a second. Up until that point, well, for about 7 years before that, I was in another UK university, London Metropolitan, again doing the same thing, setting up an environment from scratch. And that kind of goes back 10 years, which is the amount of time I've been doing Apple stuff. The agenda for today, Apple at LSE, and can I just make this clear? I didn't steal this from IBM, right? They went with Mac at IBM. This is 2 years ago, so yeah. We'll probably name it something else because, you know, anyway. So I'm going to talk a bit about the Apple at LSE service and kind of the talk is focused on two case studies for two of our services that we're providing with the aim in mind to kind of eliminate the middleman being effectively ourselves, and in the context of setting up a new Apple service. So I'm going to be talking a bit about it at the beginning, and then the first case study is the iOS devices using DEP, and the second one is iRoam, which is effectively a MacBook vending machine, but it's a service that we tried and has been very successful for us, effectively automating the provisioning of MacBook Airs to begin with our library building, to students to use for the day. And now this is expanding quite a lot, and I'm just going to talk a bit about how that came to being and how we see it and what the uses are. And then some thoughts on automating provisioning that you can go away and think about. Again, kind of within the context of everything we will have talked about by then. And then some Q&A. So I've only got one slide about the LSE, and this isn't a marketing thing. I'm just trying to give you the context of the institution. The LSE was founded in 1895, so this year we're celebrating our 120 years. We have 9,000 students and 3,000 staff, so it's not a massive university, especially by American standards, but it's what you would call an average size institution. We have 24 academic departments and 20 research centers, and research is very important for the LSE. These 20 research centers are all highly ranked, and this is an example. So we're ranked second in the world for social sciences in 2014 and 2015, beaten by Harvard. Is anyone here from Harvard? No? Good. So again, the reason for this slide is just to show you that coming into an environment and being asked to set up a managed environment. Managed is a very tricky word. It's not easy within that context because these researchers see their own little environment as their own domain. They bring the money in for their research centers. They buy the hardware, and simply going to someone and saying, right, okay, forget about what you've been doing so far. This is how you do it. It wouldn't work very well. So Apple at LSE, and starting from scratch, we knew we had a lot of Apple devices in the wild. I mean, 2 years ago, okay, we started, when I joined, I was given a list of, there was no Casper Suite, there was no nothing. So I was given a list of about 15 devices that we knew we had from somebody who was supporting them at the time. But we knew there were Apple devices. We had Apple users. It's not like, although the LSE was also always Windows-centric in its infrastructure, it's not like people didn't know how to use a Mac. So we had to take that into account. And this is something that I actually see quite a lot in universities. We decided to adopt a non-intrusive management model. And again, keep in mind, this is 2 years ago. There was no DEP. VPP was well, not as extensive and as comprehensive as it is today. So we were fairly bold in saying we're gonna try to not image anything, and we haven't for 2 years. But it hasn't all been smooth sailing, as it were. We decided to, like I said, say no to imaging and yes to enrollment. This was before DEP, so we decided to go with user enrollment. At the beginning, through our own IT department, and then gradually being in a position where, like the images you saw both from IBM and Dean from Jamf yesterday, give someone a box with a sticky on it, although we didn't do the sticky because we're far too serious for that sort of stuff. Still, that was the idea. And it's actually great, on a side note, it's great to see, I mean, IBM go down that road. And something that we were discussing with Jib actually before the session, it's interesting to see a company of that size doing this sort of approach. I mean, our environment is actually, even today, it's actually very small. We have about 1,000 devices, an even split between iOS and OS X. But we kind of faced similar challenges to what IBM were talking about. But again, you don't have to be someone who has, I don't know, a small country, effectively 400,000 people, and the resources of a small country. Coming from Greece, I can tell you this is this is the case. So right, okay. So again, we decided 2 years ago to not manage the machine, but to effectively look at how we can provide services to users. This is different. So, and you see this more and more. This idea of management, and even the Casper Suite until recently, was kind of focused on managing hardware. So you manage the computer on a computer level. But this is becoming increasingly, I'm not going to say irrelevant because it's not the right term, but you can see where big manufacturers are going. You can see where Apple are going with the DP. The DP is the best example. It's all about the user experience, not necessarily the hardware. Again, this point just highlights what I just said. We don't want to be in the way, hence the eliminating the middleman approach, or even though the middleman are effectively us. But of course, you still have to do what it is you want to do. So it was quite interesting. So what does our JSS environment look like, and what was our approach? We were lucky in that when the day I think we had our jump start with a Jamf employee at the time, was the day that the JSS version 9 was released. So rather than trying to kind of design based on the old infrastructure, we said, okay, we're just going to basically start from scratch, even with that, and design based on the new features. And sites was quite important because the way that IT is organized at LSE, we have the central IT department, and then we have research areas, like I mentioned, departments who traditionally have had IT support teams within them, and I'm sure this is a model that many of you are familiar with. So we wanted one solution that could accommodate people, and sites at the time, and as it turned out throughout this period, actually provided us with a very good solution. So we have the JSS, well, it's called full access mode or global, if you like, universal kind of level, where we can set policies on a global scale, on a global level, and then we have sites are not. I'm not referring to sites in physical sites, but they can be separate departments, they can be teams, or like I say, services with distinctive needs. So there is a site, for example, for our Trium Executive Global MBA program, which has unique requirements in that we provide, whoever signs up, we give them an iPad. They run the course for 2 years and then they keep it, so we then unmanage it and it's theirs. That's managed within a site, and there are site administrators and people who can audit just that site and enroll and so on. And then we have other sites like a staff or student or iRoam, as we're going to see in a second. And again, this kind of not manage but provision approach. We decided that we're going to manage as few applications as possible. So Office, which is one of our core business apps, Sophos, again, for the same reasons, and Flash in Java, just simply because, you know, every week. It's yeah. Yep, and that was before Auto Packager and all the other kind of really good tools. So yeah, our management, effectively, it's not like we don't do anything to the machines. I mean, IBM, when they say light touch, they are very light touch. But we focus on securing the client. We run our security scripts. We have, again, depending on the area, there may be, some areas may be a lot more secure and restricted, although, again, not to the point where you can't use the thing. But in other areas, like something that we started doing recently with one of our researchers, research groups, we call it the, we'll find a better name eventually, but we call it the configuration for advanced Mac users. Effectively, basically, it's just self-service, Jamf binary, and nothing else. And everything else, and also the security policies, and everything else is on demand through self-service. And that actually works very well. So again, I went through this fairly quickly because I just wanted to provide you with some context about our approach towards setting up the service and the environment that we had to operate in. So one of the two case studies we're going to look at is using DP to provision iOS devices. And DP has been talked about extensively, and it's the hot thing right now. And James's session yesterday was very informative. So I'm quite happy that I didn't go into technical details about this case study, on too many technical details, but I wanted to focus on, if you like, the business decisions and the challenges you're going to face. Now, the challenges we faced that you may face. Right? So why did we decide to do this? And this is similar to what I hear when I speak to other people, especially from universities. They see an increase in iOS devices. I don't think there's any business at the minute, anywhere, whether it's education or private, that doesn't see this. We were already, before we decided to use the DP, and in the UK it was released about 6 months or a year or something after it was released in the US. But still, there wasn't really a lot of documentation available. Nevertheless, I decided to implement it literally the first week when it was available in the UK. But up until that point, we were using user-initiated enrollment. The problem was that these machines were unsupervised, and that was the result. Quite a few iOS devices were not disappearing, because they're still in the JSS, but they would stop talking to us, effectively. And I run a smart group that I check very frequently, and this is the average. So it's 25%, pretty much all the time, that hasn't checked in the last 60 days. And just out of curiosity, is this something similar maybe to what you're seeing, people who are in a similar situation? So the DP was a very good tool that at the beginning looked like it would actually fix this for us. And actually, this particular point, I think it has fixed. So what we aimed to achieve in implementing the DP, the first one, and I think this is again, talking to other people, this is one of those things that everyone wants to do, is they want to have fewer steps in the provisioning process. For a long time, quite a long time, buying a computer or a device meant, I don't know, 2-3 weeks. So you order it, you're waiting for it to come, and then IT has to set it up, and you get an email, and you have to have an appointment, and then you go and you sit with the person for half an hour because they want to set it up, and they couldn't do this before because they didn't have your password, and you shouldn't give them your password, although people do. So this was a very good solution. The other one is as much automation as possible. The whole point of having a very sophisticated tool like the JSS and the DP in the background is to actually skip quite a lot of these steps. Important, again, going back to the point in the last slide, we wanted to be able to audit. We wanted to know where our devices were. And we wanted something that was future-proof. And the DP, it's a recent thing, but I think, to me at least, it's a very good indication of where Apple want things to go. And it's this Apple consumer experience that is kind of infiltrating the enterprise, if you like. And I know universities don't necessarily identify themselves, well, IT environments with enterprise, but I think we're getting there. As in the Apple world, at least, the last year has seen very big changes, and the presentation this morning only goes to prove that. So how it works, and these are slides that I'm sure you've seen before. So we didn't change the initial bit. So someone needs to request a device, and we buy things centrally, but still, because they pay for it, we need things like budget codes and so on. So there is a fairly quick process that someone can just submit a request, buy a device, we buy it, and it's delivered. Apple are very quick. Sometimes we have things the next day. So that improvement on the manufacturer's end in terms of deploying devices very quickly has actually sped things up quite a lot for the overall process. So we asset the device and we record the information that we need. Again, this is for auditing purposes, and it's our standard procedure. And then we basically tell the user that the device is ready. So from that point on, this is where effectively the DP is changing our workflow. So they have an option to just come and pick it up and go away. Or if they want us to help them set it up, again, that's fine. This is a theme that you'll see repeated in this presentation. The whole point of automating things is not to kind of never see your users again, right? But it's nice to be able to support people who still need support, who don't know how to set up the iOS device initially, or maybe are not interested. So we can still do that. Yeah, this is what I was just talking about. And once the iOS device, say a user is doing this at home, once the device is activated, the DP kicks in, and effectively the pre-stage that is assigned to, or that this device is assigned to, will dictate how the process goes on from that point. So these actually, I wrote this presentation about a month ago. There were a couple of changes which I'm going to explain. But effectively, a typical setup for a staff device, initially it will ask for the language and the region. And from that point on, we want people to connect to the network to activate the device. If they're internal, we use iRoam, which is the education network provided by Janet. And then we want them to log in with their AD credentials. So this has been a very good feature because obviously it automatically assigns the device to that person in the JSS. So for auditing purposes, this is great. And we can also make use of that username and automate various other things like setting up their email automatically, for example, if it's a staff device. We enforce passcodes for obvious reasons. I mean, this is a device they take away. They will sync their email, and they have confidential company data and so on. And really, from that point on, okay, this is the point I need to make clear. So we added a couple of steps. So location proved to be important, so we enabled that, and also backing up. So restoring from iCloud. So in certain cases, not everywhere, we have to allow that. When we went live with this, it was easy because it was the first time. But as people change devices now, we need to be a bit more flexible. From that point on, we installed the self-service web clip because, again, at the time when this was written, you couldn't deploy apps without an Apple ID, although this is now different. But yeah, we installed the web clip, and we made the self-service app available in the web clip. If someone installed self-service, the web clip went away, so the scoping worked either or. So you would always have something on the device. So, a few challenges, and there have been a few. I've listed 3 here that I'm going to talk about individually. So the first one was we wanted this to be as automated as possible, but you sort of realize you have 2, not management tools, because the DP isn't really a management tool, but still it requires a certain amount of interaction. So someone needs to go into the DP portal and assign devices, for example, if you have more than one MDM server set up there. And keep in mind, our environment is, although it's one JSS, it's actually with sites, we have different needs for different sites. So we had to look at that a bit more closely, and I'm going to talk about it in a second. Shared devices. Okay, it's all nice and easy when it's assigned to a member of staff and they authenticate with their credentials and their email is set up and everything else is customized in Wi-Fi and so on. But what about shared devices? And people, especially with iPads, they buy 10 iPads and they give them to staff, but they won't necessarily tell us if they swap because someone wanted a mini and they got an Air, and someone doesn't want it because their wife bought them a present and they got the latest iPad, so they gave it to the PA or something like that. So we wanted to be able to easily provide access or still use the DP for shared devices, but also change the identity of a device as far as the JSS is concerned from private to shared. And I'll talk about it in a second. And this one was interesting. The more we automated, not just on the DP side of things, on anything, the more we started getting feedback from people saying, well, yeah, this is all great, but I'm not quite sure if I'm doing it properly because there's no one there. It's just me setting something up. So inevitably, this is the side effect of automation, at least to the degree that we kind of took it. The people feel a bit isolated. They feel they're on their own. And that was something that I thought we should address. It's not a technical problem. So the first challenge, JSS or DEP, again, we wanted to automate as much as possible. That was the end goal. So like I said, you can have, just out of curiosity, how many people here have actually implemented DEP? Okay, so not a lot. So for the ones who are going to go into this is actually an important decision at a very early stage. And James talked about it yesterday and had some interesting screenshots. So what you have is, this is a screenshot obviously from the DP portal, again, at the time before they upgraded it about a month ago. But it looks pretty much the same. So we decided to have one instance, one MDM server in the DP, and have the JSS, which is a tool that we've already built our entire managed service on. We wanted the JSS to take care of which machine is in what pre-stage. What made it a lot easier for us is that most of our iOS devices were stuff. I mean, I'm talking 90%. So we could say, yeah, for those who know, the green button here means that any device that is associated with our DP account, effectively. So we have 3 or 4 third-party resellers as well as our Apple accounts tied in with our DP portal. So anything that is purchased automatically goes into that DP account, and anything that goes into that DP account is automatically assigned to this MDM server, which is quite a nice solution. And effectively, it means that without us having to log into the DP every day to see what was assigned or what was passed on by Apple, we could do the management on the JSS. So yeah, that's what the DEP looked like, and this is what the JSS, at least at that stage, pre-stage enrollment page looks like. So we have pre-stage enrollments that are associated with our different services/sites that I talked about. Yeah, and this is just a screenshot of at that initial stage where we automated pretty much everything. This is what it looked like for a mobile device. So we have things like obviously this was important and this was important. We wanted devices to be supervised and we wanted them to be managed. So the profile should be mandatory. And then effectively, okay, I went a bit nuts and disabled most things, but again, over time, as the service matured, we compensated. So the second challenge, which was to provision shared devices, again, it wasn't something. I mean, most of these things are not technically difficult to achieve. The difficulty is in identifying the best workflow for the environment while you're trying to minimize everything. You're trying to automate everything, and this is quite tricky. But for shared devices, like I said, most of our devices were staff devices. And when the staff device was enrolled via DEP, user-specific profiles would come down, email, Wi-Fi, and so on. So they were really tied to a person. This was, like I said, this is a fairly simple solution, but it actually works quite well. So you will notice that this is an extension attribute, device is shared. This is based on a drop-down menu custom extension attribute. If someone can go in and edit the configuration for that device and say device is shared, yes, save it, and from that point on, the device is moved to a number of smart groups that then kick in a number of actions in the JSS. So it's an automated process. Effectively, we remove user-specific profiles. We apply the necessary restrictions for a shared device. Things like we don't want people to go and configure the LSE email using the built-in client because that's local data. This is going to be downloaded onto the device, and if it changes hands, it stays there. So what we do instead is we install the Outlook web app, block the ability for people to configure local email and so on. So you get the idea. This then becomes a shared device. If someone goes back to the JSS and changes that, then it's reverted. Of course, it's reverted based on the ownership of the device, so this is quite tricky. And that's why an important step here, which isn't actually listed, is to explain this to people, to make the service visible to people so they know what they're doing. This one, like I said, it's ironic because you think, oh, look at this super duper service I'm providing for my users. They don't have to do anything, I don't have to do anything, and I don't even need to be at work, and things just work. But actually, people can feel that, they don't know if they're interacting with Apple, they don't know if they're interacting with you, and especially in higher education, and we're a university who, like I said, specialize in social sciences. We don't have the computing courses. We don't have necessarily people who work with technology, understand what it means to manage a device and so on. It's important that they know we're there for them. And this is a completely non-technical thing. So, like I said, the process should be visible. I mean, you saw the IBM have done a fantastic job at that, and we saw this earlier in the slides. Their web portal and their enrollment kind of progress page and explaining what is happening and where you can go next and so on. And this is great. And this is similar to what it is, obviously, in a much smaller scale, to what it is that we're trying to achieve. I know this is very obvious, and I've got a few obvious things here, but hand-holding is fine. Very often I'll speak to IT support people, and they don't want to see users. Users are stupid, and or they don't know how to, I don't know, plug in and charge their iPhone, but they've got a PhD in, I don't know, anthropology. So it's okay. It's okay to take someone by their hand and guide them through something. And then also, considering what we're trying to achieve is to bring this nice Apple consumer experience into effectively the enterprise, with the IT enterprise, albeit in an educational environment, we can copy them a bit. So you will recognize this, right? This is the piece of paper that comes in an iPhone. Well, we made our own. This is, you probably can't read the text, but effectively what we're doing is, at that point where we purchase a device and we put a sticker on it, an asset label, either on the box or on the device itself, we also insert a piece of paper that basically we tried to make it as attractive as possible. We had to put a fair amount of information, so not quite, this is where the on-off button is and so on. But we tell people what it is they need to do. We tell them that they have to connect to Wi-Fi, they have to verify their LSE credentials, they have to enter a passcode because they actually, when the passcode bit comes up, people say, oh, I don't want to. And so we try to explain why it is that you need to enter a passcode, even though it's obvious to us. We're there to explain things to them. And then basically how to install applications, the whole point about self-service and Apple IDs and so on. And then at the back, it's basically where to get support, give us feedback, and learn a bit more. So we did this, and again, admittedly, we haven't been doing it for too long. This is the DP generally is a new thing, and people are now getting into it. But we saw some benefits. We achieved what we wanted to achieve at the beginning, which was to reduce the time it took for a device to reach the user. Users feel more engaged. I mean, they do like the fact that they can switch on the device themselves and activate it. And And it's not about suspicion as much, like, okay, I don't know what IT did to my iPad before they gave it to me, but we see a lot less desire for people to wipe their devices as soon as we give them to them. And this is true. They do enjoy the unboxing experience. Who here has kept at least one Apple box? Right? I work in an office with about 80 people. 79 of them are Windows people. And you walk around the office and you see in various shelves and desks and stuff, boxes of MacBooks and iMacs, and they're never going to use them again, but they keep them. And it's the same thing at home. I've got a few iPhone boxes and my MacBook box. It's the whole Apple experience that is coming into into corporate IT. And this is actually one of the harmless, kind of nice things. But on a user level, on a psychological level, it actually works very well. They feel enjoyment. And it's future-proof until Apple say it's not. Right? Who would be surprised if Apple tomorrow said, oh no, the DP, forget about it. We now have the BSB, D, whatever. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And what's next? So where do we see this going? Again, these slides were written actually the day that iOS 9 was released, because that's the day that we did the roadshow in London. VPP, integrating VPP was a challenge because of how it worked with Apple IDs. Now it looks like it's going to be a lot more straightforward. I know we had interesting discussions at James's presentation yesterday, so please let's stick with those. Let's not repeat everything. Yeah, VPP will actually, the way that you can assign to devices will make a lot of things easier. Yeah, the DP in other services, iRoam, which I'm going to be talking about in just a second. This provision to own ID, I put it in double quotes because it's kind of, I made it up, but basically it's what I mentioned earlier. We have a student, they start, they get given an iPad or a MacBook or whatever it is, because they paid £50,000 for a course, and then they keep it. We want to manage it in between, but then eventually it stays with them. So again, the DP is a nice way of doing it because we can disown devices, which is fantastic. And right, so that's the next case study, very quickly. A MacBook vending machine, and this is probably what you think I'm talking about. This is an Apple vending machine, believe it or not, from the 20s. 1920s, people wanted apples. And this was, I think, in Hyde Park or something. Ours looks slightly nicer and a bit more 21st century. So, right, all it is, it's a vending machine. Okay, so the hardware, and there are, I mean, we buy from a particular vendor, but there are 3 or 4 vendors I'm aware of that actually sell the same thing. Is anyone else here doing this already? No? Wow, okay. So, this is what it looks like. The way it works is very simple, and I'm just going to go into it in a few slides. So this started in the library building, so it made sense for us to register, to treat these MacBooks as books, as loan items. So the cabinets are connected to a central unit with a touch screen and a card reader. So the control unit is actually tied in with our library management system. So these MacBooks are, as far as the system is concerned, books or loanable items. Students can take this out for 4 hours at a time, and although this is how we started tweaking it a bit. And if someone is late, we're not charging them fines as you would do with books, but we kind of prevent them from borrowing anything else. We haven't had any incidents at all. We started a pilot with about 36 MacBooks. This time last year, we're now, I think we're on over 100, and we get requests for more every day. So yeah, students will scan their ID card, enter a PIN that they've been provisioned with at the beginning of their course, and then one of those cabinets starts flashing, and they can take the MacBook out. Then they take it out. This is within our building, so it's fully covered by Wi-Fi, so they can log in over Wi-Fi with their AD credentials. I mean, from this point on, the JSS takes over and it's fully managed. We have already pushed on a certificate, a profile with the necessary certificates and credentials for the laptop to connect to Wi-Fi at the login window. They log in with a username and password. Ownership of the Wi-Fi session changes, and they're now connecting to iRoam with their own credentials. They do what it needs to do, what they need to do. The JSS actually manages all these things, network shares, printers, and so on, depending on who logs in, and we have a number of login scripts. And on logout, we clear the profile. We restart the laptop, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. And they put it back. So they go, scan, pin, put it back in there. They need to plug in the power adapter, otherwise the door doesn't lock, which is a great feature. And the MacBook will again be released if the battery is adequately charged. We set this at 80%, which is more than enough for a 4-hour session. And if they take it away, I mean, we tell them don't take it away. There is actually at the login window, there is a acceptable, I don't know, user policy. You know, you can push an RTF file, and so they have to accept that, and they say, okay, I'm going to be charged £750 if you know I lose this, but we don't charge students. That's not the point. But if they take it away based on IP, and I want to make it based on location, JSS looks at that, kicks in a policy, activates tracking software. We use Prey, and we throw a crocodile log notification on the window saying, where are you going? Go back. We haven't had any problems whatsoever. But I mean, this came up a couple of times, but not because people were trying to leave with their laptops. They honestly thought they can take them home and do their work, which actually is what we'll be doing as we get more and more of these. And right, so what's good about this? What we have found that it works. This is a big one, and reducing static computer areas, and especially for a university that is planted in the middle of London, which is one of the most expensive areas to build in the world. And space is precious. Our estate the university is 120 years old. Some of our buildings are 120 years old, and they need refreshing, which is why we decided last year to knock down 25% of our campus to build this amazing building, but that's going to be in 4 years. So you can imagine we're in a very tight situation at the minute. So departments see this, academics and other administrators, they see this in the library and think, okay, so get rid of the 25 machines that take up a whole room and have 60. You can easily fit 80 laptops in the space against the wall in the width of this projector screen. So you can imagine 80 computers in a computer lab environment. It would pretty much take up the whole of this space. It's fully automated. We don't have to run around every time someone borrows a laptop, although we provide support, hands-on support, and I have to credit our student support team, who are amazing, and effectively they run this on a day-to-day basis. Again, they're admins in their own site. They can administer the computers together with me. They go on Jamf training courses using the training pass, and it works very well, but they do a lot of great work. It's fully scalable. We can buy another 500 of these things tomorrow, and they can just enroll them. We use the DP for these, but it's our techs who do it. And our JSS environment is all virtual. We could probably spin up another VM and beef up the database a bit, and do some kind of maintenance and optimization. But as far as the JSS is concerned, the policies would stay the same, and it's business as usual. And it's a better user experience, and it is a better user experience, and people tell us that, students tell us that. They like the fact that they can for whatever reason, end up in the campus without a laptop, and they know they can go in and get a laptop and do some work. And also, just to say, and it's not in the slides, when you log in, we're interested in this platform agnostic kind of idea, where effectively what we mean is we want to buy Macs, but we want to run Windows apps. So similar to what IBM have been talking about, we use virtualization presentation software to present. We use vWorkspace, which I think they've been bought by Dell recently. It was Quest before. Anyway, it's a VDI product that actually works very well. You can present individually sequenced Windows apps or a whole Windows remote desktop, and you can scope it to different kinds of users. It works very well. So if they want to run MATLAB and it's not available in the machines, okay, we need to beef up the backend, but they can do it. So they do actually appreciate that. Right, what is bad? And I'm just going to load this slide, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. Okay. Now, that's not to say that Mavericks or Yosemite or El Capitan have been or will potentially be bad. But the weakest link in the chain is Wi-Fi. And this is why we restart the laptop, especially in Yosemite. I'm not going to go into details, right, because I don't want to maybe bring up bad memories for anyone. But this was the only problem. The JSS bit worked fine. The cabinets worked amazingly well. But Wi-Fi was an issue. And that's why we started having people kind of available so that if someone had a problem, they could just quickly restart it. And really, all it took is a restart. Anyway, El Capitan has a question mark. Let's see. And yeah, what next? So we need to plan for more. It's obvious we have requests. Even now, today, I got an email for another cabinet and laptops and how it could work and so on. We need to, I mean, we're being told by our users, by the universe, that we need to beef up our backend in providing Windows apps and VDI services. And we're looking at that at the minute. And not just for the iRoams, also we do the same thing. I mean, the iRoam program was the pilot almost, but we do the same thing for our static Mac areas. So we have, if anyone's coming to London in February in the Mac Admin and Developer Conference, I'm going to be talking about how our Mac lab is our Windows training and certification environment. Yeah. So this idea that you sit down in front of a Mac and you can just run anything is becoming more appealing to us, and this is what we need to do. And yeah, we need to plan for expansion. I mean, this is fine in the library, but why not pick up a MacBook in the library and return it in another building that's actually 15 minutes away? iOS. When I wrote the presentation, there had to be a question mark there. No longer. We've already ordered cabinets and iPads, and especially now with the VPP, assigning to the device. This is great. This is fine. Well, there's one problem in that you can't log out from an iOS machine. So when you return it, you have to either wipe it or someone has to do it for you. So what we'll probably do to begin with is actually copy the way that we lend out books, so that someone from the library, from the IT help desk in the library, will receive the iPad and give you a receipt or whatever, and then go into JSS, go wipe, put it back, and it's ready for someone else. Something like that. And right. We're near the end, so some final thoughts. And this isn't me trying to be a Greek philosopher, but these are things that have concerned me, and hopefully you'll find them interesting. So this doesn't mean less work. Right? That's not the point. That shouldn't be the point. What you want is you want your users to enjoy the user experience. Not necessarily for you to spend more time on Facebook or Jamf Nation is okay, but this definitely. And it sounds funny, but I had people telling me, oh, so we don't have to see them again. Like, you do second line support, right? Anyway. Right, this is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's a fairly serious point. Simplicity is a complicated, achieving simplicity, I should say, is a complicated thing. And we saw it with IBM. It seems simple, right? Okay, give someone local admin rights and go off, and they do their own thing. We never see them again. But actually, and this takes me back to what my original background is fine art. Years ago, I studied fine art, and then multimedia, and somehow I'm here. But one of the first things they tell you when you start learning to learn how to paint is you never really, in reality, start with a blank canvas. There is no such thing as a blank canvas. I may want to focus on this bit of red carpet here, but there's all of this going on. So you end up at a minimalist kind of expression of what it is you want to do by taking into account the mess in the world. And keep in mind, when we talk about systems, the bit of red carpet still has to exist in relation to all of this. So your simplistic kind of automated set of provisioning still needs to work with the rest of your infrastructure. Yeah, think about that. And yeah, again, the DP is a new thing, but imaging has been the same for about 20 years, right? Give or take. Provisioning is a new concept, and as a new concept, it means that You may wake up tomorrow and Apple have shifted from DP to BBBB or whatever. It means that you may have to change everything. So if you decide to go into production with the DP, think about that, because you will need to be on your toes. It's not as dramatic as I make it sound, but still, for someone who, okay, I mean, I manage 1,000 machines, but I've been speaking to people here from school districts, and they've been saying, oh yeah, 40,000 iPads and 15,000 Macs, and well, that's a big change. And the final thought on provisioning, so you can really think about this. This is a great quote, and it's from William McDonough, who's an architect. If you don't know him, he's one of the kind of advocates of green architecture and going alternative ways. And this is becoming my favorite thing. And the Stone Age did not end because we ran out of stones. We started thinking that there are better ways of doing what we're already doing. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, okay, I'm talking about provisioning. I haven't imaged the Mac in 2 years, but that's, imaging is not a bad thing. It doesn't mean that for provisioning, to go into provisioning, you have to never touch a Mac, never image a Mac again. It's just a case of taking a step back and saying, okay, well, is there anything else that maybe might make my life a bit better, or maybe not necessarily now, but in the next year or in 2 years, will kind of push us forward a bit, rather than doing the same thing every year while the world around us changes. Thank you. Any questions? I'll be happy to answer. Okay, you were the fastest, I think.
You mentioned that you guys are putting asset tags on your devices. Can you talk about the unboxing experience? You guys are technically unboxing.
Yeah, we are. But effectively, all that's missing is the shrink wrap. Right. So we're not taking everything out and just give them a box with an iPad in there. And so okay, we have to enter these into our asset register. I can see as this matures, I can see it actually moving to the point where we just ship something to someone. I mean, we can certainly do it now.
That's what we're struggling with, is we're using an assigned asset tag name for the device, and it looks like IBM, they're doing 1,900 a week. They're handing the units sealed up, using the serial number or some other method to track that, and we're considering that. I was wondering if you were actually opening boxes.
We are. Look, the thing is though, the reason why we're doing this is not technical. It's not for me, for my benefit. This is for our purchasing team, and also this is regulation. Any piece of IT needs to have an LSE asset tag on it. But the device is actually named after the serial number in the JSS. I mean, the serial number is. I think James was saying this yesterday. It's actually an asset tag. It's on the back of every device. Why not use it? And it's a unique thing. Okay, it's not as easy to search as, say, a 6-digit number, but still.
I can speak to that a little bit. Quantities that IBM is dealing with, I'm sure they're getting asset tags on it factor.
Yep.
Do you use anything like deep freeze to clear off the profiles, or do you just use like JSS to do that?
Yeah, so the question is if we use deep freeze or something similar to clear the profiles. No, we don't. I've thought about it and I've played around with deep freeze. No, we use a logout script that basically clears the profiles. The thing is, if I can do it with a single policy and a single script, introducing another system within a system, all you're doing is introducing dependencies and things that can potentially break. I'm not saying it's wrong, but yeah, I just didn't see the benefit. No, everyone's an admin. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, again, I think similar to what IBM were talking about. Whether or not someone installs something that they shouldn't is as much a technical thing as it is a human resources process, if you like. So, if you want to trust your users, inevitably you have to kind of pass on a certain number of, or a certain amount of responsibility to them. And at some point, it stops becoming a technology issue. It's kind of a human resource or a process issue. Okay. Yeah.
With one NVM server, do you
Yeah, so just to repeat the question, with one MDM, do we manually assign the devices? Like I said, we're in the fortunate position of having most of our, like 90% of our iOS devices being staff devices, at least to begin with. So it works well with every device in the MDM server is assigned to the JSS, and then from the JSS, if we don't get a staff device, then we assign it to another pre-stage. So far, it's manageable. It's not the best. It's not the best method. I'm aware of that. But if anyone has any suggestions, please find me and tell me, and I can copy it.
What are the lockers that you use? Like what brand?
What brand? I'm allowed to say that stuff, right? Okay, it's lab safe. Yeah. Yeah. So how do we get people to log in over Wi-Fi with the directory accounts is the question. Yeah, it was a bit of a headache to set up. Effectively, what happens is we push down once the machine is enrolled, we push down a configuration profile with the necessary settings for the iRoam network, including credentials for a service account that logs in, and also there is a tick box in the profile that says, I don't remember the exact words, but basically use it as a login window configuration. So as long as you enable that, and your credentials are correct and your certificates are correct if you need them, then your device will connect to the Wi-Fi, and we use an enterprise network and then allows okay. So it will allow people to log in. What I found wasn't working very well. Obviously, we had to authenticate, we had to log people in with email and password, which was a bit of a pain. But actually, running a couple of scripts and making certain network groups part of domain users actually allowed us to log people in with username and password, because the way it works, so the device is connecting at the login window on iRoam. You log in with your username and password, then there's a check. So basically, the laptop connects to the Wi-Fi that passes that request over to the domain, and then you grab the email address for that user with the password that's already there, and then log them into the laptop with the email address and user in the background. And once they log in, like I said, the ownership of the Wi-Fi session changes over to the username and password. So they connect to iRoam with their own credentials, and they get a single sign-on ticket based on their credentials. It's not the most technical answer, but I'm happy to show you if you like. Anyone else? Yeah.
Based on that, do you have the users create mobile accounts so that if they do drop off the Wi-Fi, they can log in before they return?
Yeah, so do we log people in as mobile accounts? For iRoam, no, because the whole point is they're supposed to use it in the environment that we provide. For staff laptops, yes. Yeah, so then they can take it away. In fact, for staff laptops, what we do, we push down that configuration. If there's a smart group that looks at whether or not we have any AD mobile accounts cast into the computer. If we don't, then we push down that configuration, that profile. Once they log in, and at the first recon, the profile goes away, and then that user effectively becomes the owner of the device, as far as the JSS is concerned. And if they want to create other accounts, that's the only user besides ourselves who can do it. So because otherwise it would be effectively like an open access laptop, right? Anyone could log in, which we don't want for staff machines. But for iRoam, no, we don't. Anyone else? Yep.
What are you doing, or how are you helping your colleagues that have existing machines? You're sending them one that's new in the shrink wrap. Do they have data that they want, or do you not run into that?
We do. It's not that common. Actually, I suppose we need to be a bit better at managing how much we spend. But since it's not a problem at the minute, they're going to take all my Macs away now, aren't they? Usually what we find is if someone buys a new Mac, their old one, it will either be scrapped, very rarely though, Basically, they just keep it and they get a new one. Most of the staff machines, keep in mind, they come from research budgets that we don't necessarily control. And I don't know whether getting into an argument, because effectively that's what it would be, with academics and research centers about how it is they should be buying and what they will be doing. It's the how bit, actually, that makes it a very difficult conversation. Where we have someone who wants to migrate their data, we help them do it. Again, that's back to my point about being available. Yeah, DP is fine, but we'll just do it with someone from support. Yes?
Going back to the Wi-Fi service account, I'm wondering, is that service account cached locally? And if so, isn't that kind of a security threat?
Yeah, is the Wi-Fi service account cached locally, and is it a security threat? Yes and yes. It is. It is. It's not what our network admins preferred. It's not what I preferred. But it's the only way that we've been able to make it work. I mean, you would expect this is a simple thing to be able to do, but it's not. What we want to do is we want to move towards certificate authentication. But our network admins are going through a big overhaul of our network. So as soon as they're done, and we'll be implementing things like Cisco ISE and so on. So I'm hoping we'll have a much better solution. Now, okay, the answer to whether it's a security risk is yes. I mean, I'm not going to say it isn't. But realistically, how much of a security risk it is, I mean, this is a service account, and all it has access to is the Wi-Fi. If someone gains access to it and logs onto our network, and again, we're not a high-risk place. We're an education institution. There are other tools that we can use to track that. Again, network management tools that we're actually very good at that. Anyone else? No? Sorry? Sorry, it's, yeah.
Is there a reason why you decided to use AD credentials?
Is there a reason why we decided to use AD credentials? Okay, specifically for iRoam, I think we have to. Right? It makes sense. We have 9,000 students. It's the only realistic way of achieving it. For our staff machines, we are moving away from it. About a month ago, we had an interesting situation at the roadshow where I was also in the discussion panel, and I said, like specifically, I am finding less and less of a reason to bind computers, bind Macs to AD. And this just started a religious war, and you know, okay, I understand. I'm not advocating against AD. There are case studies where it's needed. There's no other way that we could have done the iRoam stuff without AD. For staff machines, we're moving away from it gradually, but we're moving away from it. We use directory services, but there's no need to use AD to authenticate someone into their user profile. Is this? Do you have an opinion on this, or?
We're just currently dealing with the exact same situation. We've dealt with the device certificate for logging in. Currently, my computer is the only one in the enterprise that is doing that.
Okay.
Because of the issues we've run into due to the network, due to our Wi-Fi, and so forth. And so it seems that Apple is very anti-binding. We just actually had our second enterprise assessment, and the first time they were very big on binding. This time they're very anti-binding.
Yeah. Well.
So it's basically me asking you so I can go back to my VP and say, hey, we should really just stop binding on Macs. So
Yeah. No, don't quote me. Quote the IBM guy. I mean, I'm nothing. In the roadshow, we had Apple talking to us. We had IBM, and I had the misfortune of following them with the same presentation. Again, trying to get people to understand I didn't steal the name, and talking about 500 computers compared to 200,000 or whatever it is. But it was after the discussion, and I was relieved when, after all this kind of heated argument about whether or not you should use AD and so on, I was relieved when both Apple and IBM said they don't bind to AD. Yes?
Only mentioning this because it was a really good talk yesterday, but there was a talk that basically went through figuring out, do you need to still bind? Because yesterday,
Okay, thanks.
What was the consensus? Yeah. Depends, and here's some alternatives, and
Yeah, so it really depends on your environment, whether or not you're going to buy Interactive Directory. And think about it, what is it that you're doing? Effectively, you're allowing someone to log into a computer using credentials they already have. Okay, fine, but unless you have a specific need, like, say, for iRoam or a student environment, one-to-one deployments tend to kind of slowly move, slowly, but it is happening. I think there is a shift in the way that this is done. Do we have anyone else, or are we happy to? Yes?
If you're moving away from the mobile account, then what are you doing for the backup of the data?
If we're moving away,
Then go to Casper, which educational institutions are not going to involve as you guys. That is the problem.
so just to repeat this for the recording, so if we're moving away from the mobile accounts, what do we do for the backup? Well, we're moving away from the mobile accounts for iRoam, for student sessions, which we delete the data at the end of each session anyway. When a student logs in, we auto-mount their H space. We are now, I think we've just completed our migration to Office 365, and we're going to be making use of OneDrive and so on. And I don't know the specifics. My colleagues tell me we're going to be getting a few gigabytes per person. So auto-connecting to that, we're effectively giving them the option or the ability to save off the laptop, basically. Again, keep in mind, an iRoam laptop, and also any student Mac or PC is only used within the institution. When we decide, and if we decide to make these available externally, then yeah, we'll have to think about this. Crash Plan is also something that I'm trying to, I'm setting up a proof of concept environment and so on. It's not as, I mean, yeah, there is a cost. Obviously, there is a cost, but it's not as expensive as, in the end, the value you get and the service that you buy, it's not as expensive as you think. But yeah, okay,
All right, thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.